Well, hello everyone. Welcome. Glad you could join us. This is one of our first, actually this might be the first evening webinar that I've done. But it's been requested quite a bit, so I thought I would go ahead and do one. So welcome to an evening webinar on getting started with Appraise-It Pro. Now, this month, in the month of April, we're going to be doing these evening webinars all month, and they're always going to be on Wednesday evening. So we're going to do another one next Wednesday, which will be the part 2 to this webinar. It's the tips and tricks webinar for Appraise-It Pro. So that one's coming up next Wednesday. I think it's at 7 p.m. Eastern, but don't quote me on that. I'll show you how you can go look here in a little while. And then we'll do a couple of others for the month of April. And if they go well, I might start sprinkling some evening ones in. At least it's evening for those of you on the West Coast, or excuse me, on the East Coast. For those of you on the West Coast, I don't know. I might not be able to do an evening for you guys, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, if there's a demand, I may do that. So if you have any questions, to the right of the window here, there's going to be a chat. I've already typed in there. If you have any questions as we go along, go ahead and type them in there. If you have any suggestions, and it can be on any topic, with SFREP, I'll answer any questions that you guys may have. There's also if you've never done one of these webinars with us on YouTube, along the bottom, right around over here, there's going to be a square there that you can click on. It's like a brackets. That will make everything full screen. Just beware that while you'll be able to see things a lot better when it's full screen, you won't be able to do the chat. So just keep that in mind. There's also going to be an elongated rectangle. If you click on that, that will put YouTube into theater mode, and you'll be able to see a lot better. So for those of you who have joined us for these before, this back here, all this back here is about to change. I'm going to be moving from the mountains down to my home city of Charlotte soon. So soon there'll be a different background. So looking forward to that, but it's very hectic. I don't know if you guys have moved recently, but there's a lot to do. I'm putting this house on the market, working on that. So fingers crossed that all that goes well. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we will get started. If you are watching this webinar after the fact, then you are welcome to also ask questions and participate. You can do that by sending an email to training@sfrep.com. And if you're not signed into YouTube and you're not seeing the chat, you can also just send an email to training@sfrep.com, and I can go ahead and get your question that way. And of course, if you are using Appraise-It Pro and you run into a problem, don't email me. Actually, call 1-800-644-4051 or email tech@sfrep.com. You'll get a lot quicker response that way. That's our tech support. That's why they're there. They're there till 8 p.m. Eastern time, and they will be more than happy to answer any questions and give you any kind of help that you need. You can also go into the support tab in Appraise-It Pro, which I'll show you here in a little while, and you can do chat support with them as well. All right. So let's go ahead and crank up Appraise-It Pro. For those of you who have been with SFREP for a while, and you may be using the regular Appraise-It or Appraise-It Classic, as we now call it, do understand that if you want to install Appraise-It Pro, you can, and you will be able to have both installed on your computer at the same time, so you can continue using Appraise-It Classic as you start your transition over to Appraise-It Pro. You'll even be able to open up Appraise-It Classic files in Appraise-It Pro, and you can even go from Appraise-It Pro back to Appraise-It Classic. So that's kind of cool. That can help you if you get stuck and you're not sure what you're going to need to do. So cranking up Appraise-It Pro here. Now you can't see on my screen, but there is a splash screen that comes up when you're first launching Appraise-It Pro, but it's on my other monitor. So this is interesting. So this is not supposed to be in that font. I'm going to have to report that as a bug. I'm using Appraise-It Pro 2.8, which is a test version or a beta version of Appraise-It Pro. So this is actually supposed to be, I wonder if it does that if I come back in. What I'm kind of referring to is the font. The font is incorrect. So I'll have to, this is not a version that you guys are going to have. Oh, there we go. Now it's working correctly. So when you first open up Appraise-It Pro, it is going to bring you into an area called the Backstage. You're probably wondering what the Backstage is. Well, if you've ever used Microsoft Office or other programs from Microsoft or that are written specifically for Windows 10 or Windows 11, you may have experienced the Backstage before. It's just kind of a starting place for a program. It's very Microsoft Office-esque. We took a lot of design cues from Microsoft Office. And so when you first start up the program, you're going to be in this area called the Backstage. Now, in the Backstage, I like to call it the super file menu. And the reason I do that is because pretty much everything that would be in the file menu of a regular program is going to be here in the Backstage. So your menu selections here are on the left. So you have Welcome, New, Open, Search, and Settings. We'll go over these here in just a minute. These selections right here are grayed out because we don't currently have a report open in Appraise-It Pro, but they're duplicated in the main menu, the ribbon that I'll show you here in a couple of minutes in the editing area, so I don't really go over them here. And then we also have New Window and Exit. New Window is kind of cool. With Appraise-It Pro, unlike in Appraise-It Classic, you can open up as many instances of Appraise-It Pro as you wish. That way you can have multiple reports open. You can copy and paste between them and they'll talk to each other. It's kind of cool. If you have multiple monitors, you can set them up on multiple screens. And then, of course, Exit, very self-explanatory. To exit out of the program does the same thing as clicking the red X in the upper right-hand corner. Up here in the very, very top left, you'll see there's this little arrow here. If I click on the arrow, it's going to take me over to the editing area of Appraise-It Pro. Now, I don't have a report open right now, so it's pretty much blank, but this is the editing area with all the associated menus and everything, which we'll go over here in a little while. But the reason I like to call that the super file menu is because you can even see to get back to it, I click on the file menu right here, and instead of it being a ribbon, it takes me back here to the Backstage. So Microsoft, our development team, they all call it the Backstage. I like to call it the super file menu, and that's kind of why. So we'll start at the beginning, which is where you are going to start when you open up Appraise-It Pro, and that is the welcome screen here. Now, this welcome area is where we're going to communicate with you. We post things in here that are of interest to you. This is always going to be nice and clean and tidy, and it's going to be professional looking. There are never going to be GIFs or images or anything like that in here. Most of the time, it will be, programming related stuff, things you need to know. Sometimes if we're running a big sale, we'll put that in here, but it's going to be very low key. As long as you're connected to the internet, when you open up Appraise-It Pro, this will open up and be up to date. Next is going to be new. If you have used Appraise-It Classic, this is just like File New. And if you're coming over from another software package like Alamode, ACI, Bradford, anything like that, this will be the same thing. This is where you're going to start a new report. And this is where you're going to start a new report from either a blank slate or starting a new report from a template. Over here in this panel right here, we have all of the different appraisal types. And you can, if let's say you never do ERC work, you can just collapse that and not ever have to look through it. But you can go through here, find something you're looking for, maybe the 1004 UAD, double click, and it'll open up a blank version of that, a place where you can like a starting point. Also under here is going to be frequently used. So as you use the program, about your last 10 to 15 report types will be listed here for you to start a new report from. Over here on the right are all the templates. So when you create a template to begin a report from, it will show up over here. And this is dependent upon which report type you're actually looking at any given time over here on the left. So if I wanted to, I could just single click on UAD 1004. And then over here, I'll see my templates. Excuse me. And these templates are set up based on the cities and towns. You may create a template based on the lender or the AMC or whatever, situation you want to create a report from. Doesn't matter. And then you just simply double click on this, or you can single click on it and then click on create report, but double clicking on it does the same thing. And if you want to just open up a blank default template to create a new template from, you just double click on default template. You can also search here. So if I'm searching for a 2055, I can just type in 2055, don't even have to hit enter, and it will show me all of the instances of a 2055 report in the list. And some of these report types can obviously show up under multiple headings. So in this case, it's showing up under UAD. Then there's their Fannie Mac and Freddie Mac, or Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac versions, same report. Then there are non-lender versions that are created for obviously doing non-lender work. And then there are the legacy forms. These are the pre-2005 forms. We keep them in there for backwards compatibility, and some people still use them for non-lender work. And then if I want to go back and see everything, just click on the little X there, clear that out, and now I see everything again. Don't worry about templates. We'll go over that here in a little while on how to create a template, but I will tell you it's very simple. And if you're moving over from Appraise-It Classic to Appraise-It Pro, all you really need to know is a template is analogous to a skeleton. So if you're using custom skeletons, basically templates are the same thing, but way easier to use and way easier to deal with and create. Moving on to open, you probably in your day-to-day use of Appraise-It Pro probably won't come into open very often, but there are some reasons you may come in here. First of all, it is going to give you the most recent reports that you've done in Appraise-It Pro. So if you were working on a report a day or two ago and you want to just go back to that report quickly without having to do a search for it, you can just come in here to recent reports and you'll see the last 20 or so reports that you had open. In the upper left over here under report, you can open a report, open a classic report, or open a MISMO document. For the most part, you probably won't do these two. because you'll be doing a search for a report. But if you want to manually browse to one, maybe somebody sent you a report and it's sitting on your desktop or something like that, you can do that. And then there's Open Mismo Document. This you may actually use, especially if you're moving over from another software vendor, or if you have a colleague or friend who works for another company and they use a different software. They can send you a Mismo XML document and you'll be able to open it up. So if you're coming over from another software package, as long as you've been archiving your Mismo XML documents, you can actually get with our tech support and they can move all of those into a subfolder in Appraise-It Classic so that they will be indexed and you'll be able to search for them. But if you have somebody who wants to just send you, maybe they have a la mode and they want to send you a report, they can just make a Mismo XML document and then give it to you. We actually distribute Appraise-It Pro to AMCs and lenders free of charge to use it as an XML viewer. And you're welcome to do that as well. So if you decide, you retire or something like that, you'll always have access in a read-only fashion to all of your back reports with Appraise-It Pro. So even if you're not paying for Appraise-It Pro and it's just not registered or anything, you can always set it up as a Mismo viewer and you'll be able to view Appraise-It Classic documents, Appraise-It Pro documents, and Mismo documents. And if you have a lender or a AMC member or anybody else that may have use for this, you can just send them to mismoviewer.com and they can download it there, free of charge. Next is a template. Now, this is not where you create a template. This is where you can open a template or open a classic skeleton. Now, the reason this exists is that we do not automatically convert Appraise-It Classic skeletons over to Appraise-It Pro templates. We did initially in the beginning, but we found that that's not really what everyone wanted because it tended to bring over a lot of old, dirty skeletons from people's closets that just had a bunch of junk in them and people didn't really want, and they had to go in there and delete a bunch of stuff. So what we decided to do was we encourage people to go ahead and create skeletons from scratch, which I'll show you how to do here in a little while. Because one, that's going to make it so you have only the templates that you need. And in creating a new template, you're going to learn Appraise-It Pro very quickly. However, we do know that there are going to be some instances where you have a skeleton from Appraise-It Classic that's really complex, very verbose, and you don't want to bring that, or you don't want to retype all that information or copy and paste it. So we do allow you to go in and open a skeleton manually. It will open that skeleton as an Appraise-It Pro report. Then you can make the modifications, clean it up, and then save it as a template. So that's why this is here. Next, we'll move over to search. Now remember, I'm kind of glossing over things right now because this is an introduction class. If you do join us next Wednesday, we will be doing a more in-depth deep dive into Appraise-It Pro, and we'll be going over some more advanced topics, like how you can customize your search. But for right now, we're going to just stick with the default search here. And this search is just like any other search. If you're coming from Appraise-It Classic, it's very similar to the file index that was in Appraise-It Classic. This is an exclusionary search. So the more info that you give it, the more narrowed down and targeted your search results are going to be. So if you fill out city and you also give it a census tract and maybe a partial street address and maybe a zip code, it's going to narrow things down more and more. Now, I don't use Appraise-It Pro to do appraisals, so I use it mostly for testing and demo purposes, so I don't have a lot of, like a very large database here to work with. So we'll pretend like I have typed in a bunch of search criteria here, and then when I click on search, in this case, since I have everything blank, I'm just seeing everything that I have in this particular install of Appraise-It Pro, which I redid a little while back. That's why I only have 3 in here right now. But we'll pretend like this is our search results. So if I come down here and I scroll out to the right, you can see that I will have the ability to see pretty much everything that is included in the database about this particular file. And if I click on that file, I will be given some pertinent information over here on the right-hand side, some basic demographic information about this particular address, and I'll be given a front view photo if it exists. And then if I want to open it, I just simply double click, or I can single click on it and then click on Open Report. And don't worry about managing this database. It's done automatically. So as you create a new report and you save it, it gets added to the index. It gets added to the database, and Appraise-It will also search around and find appraisal reports and add them to the database. And if you work with our technical support, if you're coming over from another software package and they basically copy all of your MISMO documents over into Appraise-It Pro, they'll be indexed and be treated. Everything gets treated as if they are regular report files. If you're coming over from Appraise-It Classic, all of those old Appraise-It Classic reports will also be indexed and brought over as well. And Appraise-It Pro doesn't care if you're opening up a MISMO document, if you're opening up an Appraise-It Pro file, or if you're opening up an Appraise-It Classic file. It treats them all the same. And finally, we're going to come over here to settings. Now, if you are a tinkerer and you like, excuse me, I got allergies. If you like to go in and mess around with settings and customize everything, come in here and knock yourself out. You may want to write down any changes you make just in case they cause some type of, they do something you don't really like and you want to put it back, you'll know where to go. If you are like probably a lot of our customers and you're a little bit trepidatious about messing around with things, you may want to only come in here with one of our tech support people on the line. Okay. All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of things. I'm going to open up a blank 1004 report here. And here we go. This is the editing window in Appraise-It Pro. So if you're moving over from and I apologize, my allergies are going crazy the last few days here in Western North Carolina, so it's a whole thing. But you may hear me sniffle and maybe cough a little bit. That's why. Spring is definitely here. So this is the editing area for Appraise-It Pro. If you are moving over from Appraise-It Classic, this will look very familiar to you. If you are moving over from another software package, this will also look very familiar to you. In the center here, we have what's called a Wysiwyg editor. Wysiwyg stands for what you see is what you get, Wysiwyg. And essentially, this is a representation of what's going to be printed out for your appraisal report, and it is in legal sized here. So it's kind of like you basically have every page of the main part of the 1004 available to you here. Now, when it prints out, it won't have these colors. If you're wondering what these colors mean, when you are not in a UAD or a formatted field, down here in the lower right-hand corner in the format panel, which we'll go over all these panels in a minute, but in the format panel, you'll see that there is a color key here, and it'll let you know what each of these colors mean. So this is your editing area. You can just click in here and start typing, start typing the address, whatever. Over here on the upper left is the report panel. Now, this is the most important panel in Appraise-It Pro, and if you are moving over from Appraise-It Classic, pay attention to this part of the webinar, because this is the most important thing that you need to understand when you're moving over to Appraise-It Pro, and it will make your life a lot easier, and it will make things a lot easier for you to understand and figure out. The report panel is it's basically the table of contents of the report, meaning that this is A, what's contained in the report, and B, in what order it is contained. So this is the entire ordering of your report. Now I'm going to move this down here. By the way, you can do this. You can move these up and down, and they're customizable. So this is the order, and this is what's contained. Now, in Appraise-It Pro, it differs from Appraise-It Classic in that you build your report at the creation time and as you go along. Whereas with Appraise-It Classic, you would build your report when you were done with it and you were ready to either print it or create a PDF or a MISMO XML or whatever. In Appraise-It Pro, you build it as you go along. So I have opened up a blank 1004 UAD report, and this is what's just kind of contained in there by default to give me a starting off point. What I can do now is I can remove or add addenda to this or minor forms, and then build my report from there. And if I get it to a point where this is where I'm going to want to start from here on out, I can create a template for it. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to get rid of the flood map. I'm not going to be using a flood map today. And the name of the game here is to keep your report tidy. You don't want anything in the report panel that you're not going to be filling out and using. The main reason for that is so that if you come back to this report 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, you got a question on it or somebody has a question on it, you'll know exactly what you sent your lender or your AMC and in what order you sent it. So if I want to get rid of the flood map here, because I'm not going to be using it in this particular report, I just simply highlight flood map, come up here to click on remove. I say yes, and now it's gone. And maybe I like to put the location map at the beginning of the report. So what I can do is I can click and drag. So click and hold and then drag it up to the very, very top. And now the location map will be at the beginning of the report. Now you can reorder things when you're ready to create the final PDF or MISMO XML or whatever, but I don't recommend doing that because it can get confusing if you come back to the report later. So really you want to order things and put addenda into the report now as you're doing it rather than when you're printing it out like you did in Classic. So let's say I want to actually add something here. Let's say I want to add a COVID addendum. I know we're probably not using those anymore, but it's just easy to search on. So if I want to add that to this report, I come up here to add, and I'm just going to type in. Now I can search up here at the top either by addenda or primary form or recommended. By default, it's going to be on addenda. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in COVID. And here are all the mentions of COVID anywhere in there. And this is the one I want, this desktop one. So to put this into the report, I can double click and it will be added to the very end for me. Or I can simply, this is the way I recommend you do it, just click and drag it over to the right. This right here, notice it says report. This right here is just a representation of what's over here. So I'm going to just click and I'm going to drag it in after Report Pro. We'll put it after UAD Sales Comps Adjustments. And there it is. Click on Save and Close. And there it is. Got added to the report right there. If I want to open that up, I double click and it will open it up. And you'll notice that up here, I have a tabbed interface similar to what I would have in a web browser. And I can even click and I can drag these out and put them on another monitor if I want. And just like with a web browser, I can click and I can pop them back in as well. Once I'm done dealing with this particular addendum, I can leave it open if I want, but most of the time you'll probably want to just go ahead and close it. Remember, that's not removing it from the report. It's just closing it so you're not viewing it any longer. And you may do this by default or by accident rather. So if I click that, now I've got it blank here and I'm like, uh-oh, what did I just do? You just come back over here, find UAD Uniform Residential Appraisal Report. It'll have a star next to it. That's the primary form. Double click and it will bring it back and open it back up. So that is kind of one other that's going to be like the basics that you need to know about the report profile. There's some other stuff that we're going to go over in our Appraise-It Pro tips and tricks, but that's going to get you started. Just understand, build your report at the beginning and as you move along. Now, once you've got this the way you want it, maybe you also filled out some text in here. Maybe you added some images. If you're in Missouri or North Carolina, you have to add your seal. So you've added your seal. You got all that stuff. Maybe you put, I don't know, your license stuff or your, insurance, whatever you want to do in there. Once you've got it all in there and you got it the way you want, and you know that this is going to be your starting point from here on out, you can come up here to Home, click on Save As, and instead of Save As Report, you're going to Save As Template. You give it a name, and then it'll be available when you go to New over in the Backstage or that File menu. Think of the template as a report. It's basically, that's what it is. It's just a report that's been promoted by you to template status. So it's going to be a report that you're going to start from, okay? That's all it is. It's just a regular report that just happens to be flagged and designated as a template. John says, sorry, joined late. Will there be a replay available? Yeah, actually, John, what you can do, the cool thing about YouTube is you can actually use that little progress bar that'll be down at the bottom. And this goes for everybody. There's going to be a little progress bar down at the bottom. And you can use that just like any YouTube video to go all the way back to the beginning. But this video will always be available. So you can go back to the beginning now, or you can continue on live. You can go back to the beginning. And when you get to the point where you think you want to go back to live, you just click on the little live that will be down here. Okay. Real simple. Okay. So the validator panel. The validator is very simple. There's two types of validations going on. there is real-time validation, and then there is comprehensive validation. Real-time validation is happening just in the background. So if I come in here to state, the easiest way to see it is in the state field. If I come in here to state and I type in NC and I tab out, nothing happens. It's happy with that. But if I come in here and I type in BC by accident and I tab out, it turns red. Turns out BC is not a U.S. state. It's a Canadian province. So we're not in British Columbia. We're in North Carolina. So even if I happen to be down here somewhere else in the report, maybe I'm in the grid doing things and I glance over here, notice that there's a hard stop. If I click on it, it'll tell me what the issue is below. And I'm like, oh, I guess I messed something up. And then I can just double click on it and it will jump me back to where the problem is. And then I can make my correction. So type in NC and now it's happy with that. When you're done with the report, you'll want to do a comprehensive validation. Now, I'm not going to do it right now because it will freak out because there's nothing in this report. So everything's going to turn red. But when you're done with the report, click on this validate button and it will do a comprehensive validation where it's going to check a couple of things. Well, it's going to check a lot of things. It's going to check math. It's going to check that you filled certain things out, make sure dependencies are all met. And starting with Appraise-It Pro version 2.8, which should be released in the next month or so, it will also check over 200 bias terms so to help you meet the new bias guidelines. So good example is if you called it the master bedroom, then it will catch that and it'll say, hey, you should probably call this the primary bedroom or bath or whatever it may be. Or if, I don't know, if it said there's a lot of single men in the neighborhood. Well, obviously that's a biased term, so it's going to catch that and be like, hey, you may want to take this out. It doesn't really belong here. So it's going to do that for you as well. And that comes in the next version of Appraise-It Pro, which should be released within the next month. It'll be version 2.8. By the way, one thing I do want to make you guys aware of is 2.8, when it does come out in the next month or so, is going to have a really cool feature in it where Appraise-It Pro will run on an ARM-based processor. If you don't know what an ARM processor is, it's what's in your phone, it's what's in your tablets. Those are all ARM processors. ARM processors are really good at being very mathematically powerful, but also sipping electricity. So they're really good on battery life. Look for ARM-based processors to start replacing the Intel Core line and the AMD Ryzen line in the next few years. Because they are kind of superior in a lot of ways. It's a RISC processor or a reduced instruction set processor, but they're really good at being powerful, but just sipping that electricity. So they're going to start showing up in tablets and things. Apple has already switched to an ARM-based processor. The M1 and the M2, those are all ARM-based processors now. And look for the Windows world to do that as well. Intel's already working on an ARM-based processor, so is AMD. And if you go out and you purchase a Surface Pro X, that has a rather good ARM-based processor, and some of the lower-end Surfaces use ARM as well. So what this means is that you'll be able to install Appraise-It Pro, and if you were to install a la mode or ACI on one of these computers, they have to run an emulation, and they don't run well. They run very slow and sluggish. Appraise-It Pro will be able to run natively on that ARM processor, what they call bare metal, which means that you'll get really, really good performance out of it. Okay. Let's scoot on. Oh, one more thing about the validator is the rule set. There are two rule sets, UCDP, which is UAD, and then FHA. So if you're doing an FHA appraisal, you want to switch this to FHA, so use the FHA rule set instead of the UAD rule set. And then when you're doing a UAD rule set or UAD report, switch it back to UCDP. It will remember your last selection, so make sure that you always check this and switch it whenever you're going from one report type to another. I mean, basically UAD and FHA are almost identical. There are some key differences. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but this will make sure that you're going to be checking on the right rule set. All right, coming all the way over here to the right-hand side, we have the responses panel. And this is one of my favorite panels, the way that we implemented this in Appraise-It Pro. If you're using Appraise-It Classic, you may be familiar with the F key bar up at the top. That has been done away with, and now responses have been promoted to their own panel. And the way this works, it's pretty simple, actually. Let's say I type in 123 any street, tab over here, and then city. Well, you see I've got some responses already set up for city. Now, these are all suburbs of Charlotte. So if 123 Inner Street's actually in Charlotte, if I type in C, it will automatically fill in C for me because there are 2 C's, but H comes first in the alphabet, so it's going to do that first. If I did O, then it knows I mean Concord, and it's going to autofill it, kind of like how our web browser would. So that's one way to use them, and then I just tab out. Or I can come in here, come over here to the right, and I can double click, and it will put that town or city in for me. Or I can also assign it an F key over here. You see these are assigned F keys. So if I hit F5, it's going to put Steel Creek in there. How do I edit these? Let's do Monroe. If I want to add Monroe to my responses, I'm just going to click on Manage Responses. And I'm going to come in here and have this be Monroe. I could give it a title if I wanted to. But generally, you only need a title if it's going to be like a multi-line or a multi-sentence response. If it's a one-word response like Monroe, it doesn't need a title. And then I'm going to say I want to assign this to F7 because that's available. Hit save, hit close, and now Monroe is here under F7. So I can hit F7 now, and there's Monroe. And if I want to get rid of something like Steel Creek is spelled wrong. It's actually S-T-E-E-L and then space Creek. So I can delete that response, say yes, and it's gone. There's also a 5th panel. You see 4 on your screen: report, validator, responses, and format. There's actually a 5th one that's kind of hidden, and that's tabbed over here. It's help. This can be very helpful if you have a trainee or somebody else working for you that's not very familiar with UAD. We've been doing UAD for years and years and years now. But if they're new, each one of these fields will have help text associated with it to tell you what you need to type in there and give you guidance on what needs to go there. But we kind of hide that because most of us have been doing UAD for a very long time, and we could do it in our sleep. That is one of the reasons why Appraise-It Pro is unique in that we let you type directly into the field. If you already know the formatting, you can just type directly in there. If you get it wrong, when you tab out, it'll turn red. Otherwise, if you get it right, it stays green. And finally, the format panel. So right now I'm not in a formatted field. So the format panel is just simply showing me a color key. But as soon as I go into a formatted field, it will switch to be a what is essentially the UAD panel that you had in Appraise-It Classic. Unlike a lot of other software programs as well, we don't pop up anything at you. We keep it over here and keep it kind of quiet. That way you can just type directly in there if you want, because I know that, C2 is going to be fine. But if I want to, I can use a pull down menu here to select which C rating I want. And then when I tab out or leave that field, do C2, apply, leave the field, and boom, there it is. Now it's C2. But in a more complex field, like say view, I can come over here and I can say beneficial, view type, we'll say woods view, and then the other view type, let's say it's got a park on the other side. Oh, no, say it's got a pond, so we'll say water view, hit apply, and then it's going to put that formatting in there for me. So it's unintrusive, but it's still available to you over here on the right. Now, finally, a couple of real quick things I want to go over, and then we'll go ahead and open it up to questions. If you have any questions, go ahead and get them into the live chat now, or you can email training@sfrep.com if you're not logged into to YouTube. But go ahead and get those questions in now over in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them for you here in a minute. A couple of small things I want to show you before we're done here. Down here in the lower right-hand corner, there is going to be a little status indicator. Right now, you can see that it's green. That means that all of our online, all of our web-based or online internet-based services are online. Things like mapping. If I can come over here to services, you can see them all. Services is for online stuff. Tools is for local stuff. So Appraiser Genie Cloud, Profit.ai, Street Maps, Flood Maps, Inspect a Lot, things like that. If we're ever having a problem, this will either turn yellow or red, saying we either have degraded service or it is broken and not working. So then it'll turn red. When you click on that, it'll let you know what the issue is. And then if you want more information, you can click on that and it will open up status.sfrep.com. And you can go to status.sfrep.com if you're using Appraise-It Classic. You're welcome to do that, but it's just built into Appraise-It Pro. But this will give you information on what the issue is. You can also go back in history and find out what issues that there have been happening. Right now, we have 23 services that are all up. Nothing is wrong right now. And that's the way it is 99.9% of the time. So we have pretty good reliability, I think. And then the last thing I want to show you is over here in the support tab. You can always click on here for what's new, and it will tell you what is new in this particular version of Appraise-It Pro. You can see here that I'm using 2.8. That has not been released yet for you guys, but when it is, you can come in here and you can see all the changes that were made. I also put out a video whenever we release another major version of Appraise-It Pro, so you can look for that in your email, and on our website and on our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/SFREP. We always post a what's new video there. You can always check for updates here. A lot of people have been using this send feedback whenever they have a technical problem. Do not use that, please. It will eventually get to tech support, but it's going to take the long way to get there. If you want to get in touch with tech support, come over here under technical support and click on email. You can also click on chat there, and you can go to our knowledge base, and here are the latest knowledge base selections, the most popular ones. When you click on it, it will open up that particular knowledge-based article on support.sfrep.com. And then finally, over here on the right, we have a link to the SFREP website. This is new. This will be in version 2.8. It's the SFREP blog. If you want to view that without going there, you can always just go to blog.sfrep.com and it'll pull it up. And we have Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube links as well. All right. I believe that is everything that I wanted to go over. So let's open it up to questions. Martin says, how can you save managed responses without assigning a response key? Okay, so if I come over here, let's come back up here. If I want, I can click on manage responses. Let's say that I'm going to have this one be Dallas. That is actually a suburb of Charlotte, not Dallas, Texas. So I'm going to type in Dallas there, and I'm just going to select none for the key. So I click on save, click on close, and now Dallas is in there without an F key. Real simple. Does anyone else have any questions? While I'm waiting for some questions, if you guys have any, I do want to go to, I'm going to go to our website. Let me pull it over here so you can see it. All right. So I'm going over to sfrep.com. This is our SFREP website here. Now, if I come over here and I mouse over, don't click, but mouse over training and then come down here to training calendar, you will see all the trainings that we have scheduled for the month of April. You can see this is the one we're doing right now, started at 6 p.m. Eastern time. 7 p.m. Eastern time next Wednesday, we're going to be doing Appraise-It Pro tips and tricks. That's basically part 2 to this webinar for some more advanced stuff. And then we also have buying a new computer is one of my favorite webinars to do. That's where we're going to talk technology. You can have any technical questions that you want that are related to appraising. Come on there and I will answer them for you. And we also go over kind of what's on sale, what's on the market right now for buying a new computer or, new technology, or buying a separate laptop and you want to keep your desktop, or you want a laptop for a desktop replacement, whatever it may be. That's what we do in that particular webinar. And that one will be at 6 p.m. on Wednesday. And then finally, another introduction to Appraise-It Pro, which is what we're doing right now, will be on the 28th of April at 11 a.m. Eastern time. That will actually be the first webinar that I do from Charlotte after I move to Charlotte, moving on the 20th. So any other questions that we have? If you're watching this after the fact, if you're watching a replay of this and you want to ask a question, you feel free. What you can do is you can just simply email training@sfrep.com and I will be happy to answer any questions that you might have. As a matter of fact, let me pull up here. And I'm going to check that real quick and make sure we haven't gotten any questions that came into there, and we have not. So training@sfrep.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Other than that, thank you for showing up. This has been a pretty successful first run at a evening webinar. So I'm glad that went well. We've got a couple more coming up here in April, and then I'll probably start sprinkling these in with different topics coming up through the summer. Because, you know, the summer, it's still light outside, so it doesn't feel quite as late. So anyway, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week and a great weekend coming up. Have a great Easter weekend if you are so inclined to celebrate Easter. Otherwise, enjoy the extra day off on either Friday or Monday. We will be closed, real quickly. We will be closed on Friday for Good Friday, and that's kind of our Easter break as well. But our tech support will be open on Easter Sunday. So you'll be able to, if you happen to be working on Easter Sunday, you will be able to contact tech support, and we'll be open for normal on Monday. Martin asks, do you have a Lua scripting to import MLS data to fill the comps grid? I'm not a programmer, so I don't know a lot about the scripting, but you can contact our tech support and they can assist you with that. And also, if you go to, hold on here, guys. Let me pull this up. I'll pull this over here and we will switch. Got a lot of things going on right now. Okay. If you go to api.sfrep.com and then over here, go to scripting API, this will basically teach you how the scripting works and how you can use it to move things around in Appraise-It Pro, do calculations, things like that. And then the other thing is the two APIs for talking to other programs with the .NET API and the COM API. You can use those as well. All right. And then you may want to do, this is the RPTI file format. This is an XML based format that Appraise-It Pro uses. So if you are of the programming ilk, you can use that api.sfrep.com and it will teach you how the scripting actually works. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care, and we will see you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Thanks a lot.